Hey everybody, thank you for joining us once again for Polygon's E3 video coverage. I am Griffin McElroy. Joining me is my brother and colleague, Justin McElroy. And joining us from Los Angeles at E3 is Marcus Nilsson, the executive producer for Need for Speed. Marcus, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So Need for Speed, obviously a reboot of the racing franchise from Ghost Games. You showcased it a little bit at the E3 or the EA presser. That's like the sixth time I've done this in this video. You showcased a little bit of footage, but you also showcased a full motion video cutscene before the gameplay footage kicked off. And I know that Justin, our resident FMV expert, is chomping at the bit to know, are all the cutscenes in Need for Speed live action, real actors?
So you could obviously allude to that when we show that at E3. We're not really talking about the narrative per se, but I think any smart person could understand that when we make an investment like that in terms of actors, and then obviously what we're really proud of in that scene is more the real-time compositing of that car into that scene.
Yeah, that was really impressive. That was a pretty smooth transition over from physical to digital.
I think saying it's a pretty good transition is underselling it. I think we fooled about 4,002,500 people with that clip, because that was always the aim. I don't think anyone could pick up that wasn't real. That was a digital car in the background of that scene. So if you allude to that and you think about how the narrative is going to be told, we think this is going to be a great feature for combined with a car customization of this game, right? Imagine you put effort into a very deep and robust customization system. We can then real-time composite that into the scenes that you're going to be seeing. And yeah, we believe that's going to be really a strong way for you to emotionally connect to the game.
What do you feel like when you look at where Need for Speed is in the world of racing games? Where do you feel like, without speaking to the narrative specifically,
Yep.
where do you feel like tonally Need for Speed fits in, especially considering the history? Need for Speed's really has seemed at times like a little bit more lighthearted in its narrative, maybe even a little bit campy sometimes in previous games. Where are we going to see Need for Speed this new take fall?
So in the kind of rooster of driving games right now, there's clearly there's nothing else in the space of action racing. We have the simulator games and they're doing their stuff really well. But the action racing is kind of Need for Speed. This, as you said, this is a reboot of it. The reason for the reboot is a little bit of soul searching of what is the Need for Speed experience. Because if you look at the last couple of years, it's been a shift experience, it's been a narrative, and then we had an open sandbox environment with kind of no narrative, and then last year we had Rivals. Rivals was created as the first game from Ghost Games, and it was done. We built the team, we built the studio, we built that onto the new generation of consoles. So when we didn't ship a game last year, it was really a good opportunity for us to sit down and do this kind of soul searching of, okay, here are the pillars of the brand, and go out and kind of talk to the consumer, or talk to our fans, whether they want to be involved in kind of shaping that. So in those discussions, we've kind of arrived in this formula that we're now seeing, the first installment of. I think this is the foundation for Need for Speed now, that people will understand that this is what Need for Speed is. It is going to be deep customization in the games we're making going forward. There will most likely be a narrative in the game going forward.
Based on the trailer and all the customization that you showed, obviously there's a lot of Need for Speed inspiration, I guess, to pull from, but based on the customization and based on that sort of tone of the game, it kind of seemed like you all are moving the franchise a little bit back toward the underground era. Is that a safe assumption? That was just sort of my gut check.
No. Absolutely safe assumption, right? This is a reboot. We have been looking at many of the games we've seen in the past. From Underground to Carbon to Most Wanted, to some of the later one as well. Really trying to find what are the kind of defining moments, what are the great things that people really love about Need for Speed. So that you see Underground in there is absolutely pretty crystal clear to me. It's darkness, it's a city. Deep customization of cars, from Carbon, and obviously we have that cityscape of Cops. So there's inspiration from all those titles. And you're right, I didn't even answer the tone question actually before. I think we're moving the tone, kind of back to some of that tone that we had back in that day. But I think the storytelling, if we're going to storytelling, is going to try to stay away from being overly cheesy. I said this in other interview this week. You're not going to drift to save the world. That's not the story.
So the gameplay trailer that we saw looked really stylish, and it looked sort of appropriate given the sort of underground-esque vibe that I was getting from the game. But at times it also seemed like that style maybe made it a little bit hard to track what was going on. I saw some of the response to that trailer, especially in the sequences where you're making a heavy, right-angle drifting turn, that the camera kind of whipped around and made it a little bit hard to follow. Is there a balance that you have to strike up between style and playability? Are those people who are concerned about the
I think we actually did a small little messaging error there. That's obviously an optional camera. We have the traditional, really kind of high quality camera where you see a lot more. But this camera is developed with kind of one of the core tenets of Need for Speed in mind. We think the Need for Speed really is about edge of your seat driving, kind of crazy driving, irresponsible driving. And when you get into this, what we call the action camera, in a lack of a better word, it's probably going to have a really cool name later on.
Speed cam.
It kind of screams back at you that drive irresponsibly. That's how you get most of the camera. So I actually enjoyed playing it itself. But you're absolutely right. You lose some of the visibility going forward. But as I said, it's an option. And we do think that people will use that maybe more in the drift events or in some of the donut spots collectibles and all that kind of stuff.
You mentioned a little bit about some of the customization options in the car. I'm curious if that idea of flexibility extends into how people play the game, how they actually, their racing style. How much flexibility are they going to have to play with there?
Well, it really is about the game. First of all, you got obviously 5 parallel kind of story threads in this game. Each is set up or headed up, if you want, by a racing icon, real world icon. And you can then imagine that obviously with the full motion videos or the movie cutscenes, some of those will feature in there. I believe sorry, can you repeat the question?
Well, in terms of like the mechanical feel of the cars, right? Like I feel like that's becoming the norm in the racing genre. Is if you like high-tuned performance racing cars, our racing game is going to let you do that. If you like more of a chunky off-road car feel or a muscle car feel, we're going to let you do that. We're seeing that with games like the Crew and a bunch of other games like that. Is that something that Need for Speed is going to focus on, or is Need for Speed going to be more direct, street racing? This game world that we're now going into, Ventura Bay, is, yes, it's roughly twice the size of Rivals. But the interesting thing with the world is that it's again kind of looking into the different environments we had before, and we're putting them all into one game. So you'll have the cityscapes from Underground, you'll have the kind of hillside roads that we saw in Rivals, and everything in between. So you get variation that way. Then the handling setup in this game is something that I think is going to really land well with people, because if you imagine the earlier days of Need for Speed, you had that more grip handling of brake before the corner and accelerate out, kind of what you do in the real car, right? Whereas when we got to Criterion era, it was more you tap the brake and you have a long rewarding drift around a corner. So now we have a system where we can actually do, you can choose. Do I want to have this Criterion style drift style, or do I want to have it to be more grippy? And the trick with this is, one, to get a physics engine that can actually do both, but also then to get to be competitive, because obviously we can go into a drift event and I can obviously drift with a more grippy style, and as well as with the drifty style. So that's the balancing act of making this game, is going to make sure that you're all going to be competitive regardless of how you choose to set up your car. And then yes, there will be I guess wider spectrum of cars
in this game that what you've seen traditionally in the later years of Need for Speed. Much more specifically chosen iconic cars from car culture, as we want to stay true. We really want to stay true to that. We're working really hard with Speed Hunters, which is basically an auto culture website. That is, basically an EA website, which is covering car culture, and they've helped us kind of, okay, what are the most iconic cars that we should have, in the game? What are the customization options that we should have? What are the companies that are really credible in this world? What are the characters that are really credible in this world? And that's why I think we have been able to create a really credible offering of saying we are going back to car culture in a big way. So trying to go back and sorry, it is the third day of E3, so
I'm right there with you. I have no idea what you've said for the past 3 minutes, just like blank.
I have no idea what I've said for the past 10 minutes. I wanted to ask just one last question. This might be kind of an unpopular opinion, but my personal favorite game in the Need for Speed franchise is Need for Speed Underground Rivals for the PSP, because I feel like this franchise and the customization options and almost like the RPG progression systems in this franchise really lends itself to handhelds. Do you have any plans to return this franchise to handheld or mobile anytime in the future?
Well, the franchise obviously exists on mobile. There's a Need for Speed No Limits game, which is in some kind of soft launch at the moment. So yes, Need for Speed will be there for sure on handheld, and yes, it lends itself really well. And obviously, it's an attractive market for us with the number of installs there are. I think we're going to do interesting things on mobile going forward.
Marcus, when you drive home after a long day of playing Need for Speed, is it hard for you to resist the temptation to drive through stop signs and just floor it?
No.
Good. That's
good.
That's
because we're cops, and you just passed our test.
Surprise.
You're in LA, so you're under our jurisdiction now. Marcus Nilsson, executive producer on Need for Speed, thank you so much for joining us to tell us a little bit about the game.
Yeah. Thank you, both of you. I hope it made sense. I actually did. I don't think I answered a single question you actually asked. But as long as you're happy.
The important part is that you didn't fall for our trap, and this technically isn't police entrapment. So congratulations, you're a free man.
All right, thank you so much.
And thank you all for watching at home. Stay tuned, we'll have a few more videos for you throughout the week as we continue to cover E3.